We're back, y'all, with a new Rick and Morty episode, The Jarek Trap, and what an episode it was. It seems like fans are much more pleased this week than they were with the more mediocre season opener last week, so let's get into it. So, as I said last week, I wasn't the biggest fan of the episode they chose to kick off Season 7 with. I mean, it was a fine episode, it has some great jokes and a good arc for Mr. PB, but the plot itself I found to be rather mundane for Rick and Morty. It was also a heavily Rick-centric episode with practically no Morty in it, which I found to be an odd decision given that Season 7 is kind of the start of a new phase or era for the show, given Roiland's abrupt departure. However, I said I'd be much more forgiving of that decision if we got a heavily Morty-centric episode early on to balance it out, and based on the promo for episode 2, it seemed like we were going to get just that. However, I was very wrong because, as the episode's title suggests, this is our newest Rick and Jerry episode, which have quickly become one of my personal favorite types of episodes. They've just been getting better and better, especially with last season, which had 3 episodes where Jerry was heavily involved, and those were all in my top 5 for the season. Night Family, with Night Jerry saving the day for the Smiths, Final Desmithation, which had Rick and Jerry teaming up to prevent a horrible fortune cookie fortune from coming true, and Analyze Piss, which showcased Rick and Jerry's petty-filled rivalry of pettiness. It seems like every time an episode revolves around these two, they become fan favorites, and I definitely think that trend continues here with The Jarek Trap. Although I am very curious how they can continue after this one. Like, where do you go from here?
I don't know what to say here. I'm stumped. I'm baffled.
Overall, I thought The Jarek Trap was a tremendous return to form for the show. It had some great gags, a lot more sci-fi weirdness that I've come to expect from this show's concept episodes, as well as more snappy, intelligent dialogue that makes those sci-fi conversations so hard to track at times, which is not a complaint.
The brain is part of the body, Jerry. It's hardware. I'm gonna put my mind in your brain, and your mind in my brain.
I absolutely loved the idea of doing a body swap episode with Rick and Jerry, and especially how the creative team decided to go about it. Rick explaining that the brain is hardware, but the mind, or consciousness, is the software that they can swap is rather genius. And not to mention funny, this episode is swinging for the fences right out of the gate with its humor, showcasing just how different Rick and Jerry operate. I mean, Rick functions on such a high level, he couldn't cope in Jerry's brain for longer than 5 seconds.
Wait, no!
I thought this episode was setting up the idea that Rick and Jerry both have that X factor within themselves that would allow the other to finally live a happy life. They didn't really follow through with that idea, but I can tell they played around with it in the writer's room because the components are there. But really, this episode was more about their brains being scrambled to the point where Jerry Body and Rick Body are 2 completely new characters, new conscious minds. It's like how twins have the exact same DNA, but they're entirely different people and can sometimes look very different or have very different behavioral patterns. Though, let's face it, I'm pretty sure Jerry was just sitting in the background within his 2 half-conscious minds, cause Rick was totally taking over and arguing with himself.
What a turn. Lucky I'm such a genius, your garage can thwart death.
I'm the genius, and it's your garage, idiot. Hey, what the f did you do to my body?
Your body. Jerry, your mind did that to my body using my brain.
Jerry, my mind was in this brain in your body. Pretty easy to follow.
Honestly, I wonder if this is indicative of Rick's usual internal dialogue. Like, is he always so self-degrading? Is he always this unsure of himself? That doesn't really sound like him, so maybe this is just a case of when his hyperinflated ego meets his hyperinflated sense of pettiness.
It shuffled us.
Shuffled you, maybe. I'm tracking everything.
Garage, fix this!
Either way, I thought Rick Body and Jerry Body were perfect portrayals of the toxic traits within each character and allowed for some amazing growth for both Rick and Jerry, as well as their relationship. Plus, it also allows Jerry, or at least his body, to be involved in fight scenes and finally be competent enough to contribute this time around. One thing I still haven't figured out is why this episode is called The Jarek Trap and not something like Fricky Friday. I'm assuming they're playing off the title of The Parent Trap, perhaps because that one is just easier to parody. My headcanon is that both films star Lindsay Lohan, which I guess makes it okay? I don't know. But anyways, after we get 2 new characters with Rick Body and Jerry Body, they go ahead and barely save Morty before learning that they shouldn't be enemies given their current state. They should be best friends. I mean, they're basically twins now. And so the episode then gives us its Miami Vice reversal parody, Burger and Fries, con men who enjoy shattering glass windows, heisting crystals, and leaving behind a burger as their calling card. And they're having an absolute blast, living life to the fullest in the way they know how, genuinely happy for maybe the first times in their collective lives. That is until duty calls, or should I say mob boss Chuxley calls, informing them that their family, who isn't really their family, is being held captive. Burger and Fries realize that family is what brought them together. It's the one thing in all the multiverse that they actually cherish, so they band together a final time, further morphing into a monster to save Beth, Summer, and Morty.
Jerry? Grandpa?
Jesus Christ! Morty, Summer, daughter, wife. You are safe now. I am Jericky.
No, don't like that.
And so, after Morphin time, more like Morphine time, Jericky arrives to lay waste to Chuxley and his goons, and we get a fairly wholesome moment with Chuxley's death, aside from the grody old burger, that is.
How old is this?
However, while Jericky does technically save the day, I have to wonder who are the real heroes of this episode, cause in all honesty, I don't want to admit it's that monstrosity.
I am Jericky.
No, don't like that.
Well, in my mind, there are 3 incidental heroes that make this episode's ending work. Normally, I would say these are all too convenient, however, they laid the groundwork not only earlier in this episode, but also in the seasons before. First off, we have the neighbor Gene, whose small quarrel with Jerry over a rake opened the door to him coming clean and snapping Rick and Jerry out of it.
Hey, Rick. I was wondering if you could help me out with a bit of a rake situation.
That's right, I took it. I asked myself, why lie about it? Don't you think he knows? Couldn't I get my own? Of course I could have, but god damn it, this rake, it kept my neighbors in my life.
Second, we have Rick's garage AI computer, who not only salvaged the wreckage of the cold open, but also shuffled their brains, which accidentally or purposefully allowed Rick and Jerry to bond to the ultimate maximum and cope with each other's inherent traits. They legitimately got to experience the other's life for a moment before fusing together and learning they sort of complete one another. Now, of course, this is all reversed by the end, and I can only imagine them both being more petty after this revelation, but still, the argument stands that Garage helped save the day in this episode. And lastly, we have Memory Rick, who makes a surprise return in this episode's final moments, with Rick revealing that it was the living memory of his 35-year-old self that kept their egos intact.
Morty, we're still in here. There's a memory of myself as a 30-year-old. He kept our egos intact. He saved us. It was a whole action movie, Morty. Memory Rick, he's still trapped in here. Quick, tackle this fucking gang.
Now, Memory Rick was first introduced in Season 5, Episode 8, Rickternal Friendshine of the Spotless Mort, where he helped our real Rick save Bird Person from his brainwashed alter ego, Phoenix Person. But Memory Rick is only one of a couple callbacks to this episode. For in that very same episode, we saw Garage make a connection with Gene, roping him in to potentially save Rick if all went to hell during his submission into BP's mind.
Oh, like a Jarvis, like Jarvis in Iron Man.
Ha ha ha. Oh, I wish. Ha. Are you a Marvel fan?
Who isn't?
Yes, absolutely. Wow, it is like we are best friends.
And given their brief camaraderie in that episode, and given that Gene is one of the few people Garage has met in person, I have to wonder if perhaps Garage is the one who left that note to Gene and not Rick Body and Jerry Body. Obviously, OG Rick and Jerry are petty enough to leave that note, but I don't know if Burger and Fries are as well after their transformation of friendship. So I have this little working theory now that Garage left that note for Gene, hoping the rake incident would be enough to snap them both out of it and save Rick and Jerry from their combined minds.
So it's a note, but it's not really well thought out. That's it? They got out a pen and paper for this?
Hey, did you guys get a note too? Mine's really long.
But anyways, the episode then leaves us with a hilarious tag showing us that Memory Rick has now jumped from Bird Person subconscious to Rick's and now Jerry's, where all technology is made of springs and gears.
Day 8 of attempting to escape Jerry's mind. It has become increasingly clear my daughter married a man who remembers all technology is powered by springs and gears.
Some really quick final notes I want to add before I leave you all today. Number one, I thought Chuxley was a great villain for this episode. It's always hard to call these types of characters villains since Rick is kind of the villain of his own story and catalyst for most of the arising problems. I mean, he's the ultimate anti-hero who self-identifies as God. But Chuxley was absolutely great. I enjoyed every scene he was in. He got a great little arc at the end there too, which boosted the episode up for me.
What's the problem, kid? Conad got your tongue?
Chuxley, you're alive?
Did this guy always have a hole, or is that a big reveal?
And lastly, I honestly forgot that Roiland wasn't voicing these characters. This episode really felt like a true return to form, not only in its story structure, sci-fi concepts, and hilarious dialogue, but also in the voices themselves. So barring any major future mishaps, I think it's safe to say, we're back, baby. But I want to hear your thoughts down below. Let me know where this episode stands for you, as well as any theories or speculations you're willing to share on where Season 7 might be headed. I look forward to meeting you all down below to discuss this one further. And in case you missed my brief review of Episode 1, you can check that out now by clicking the link at the top of the screen or in the description below. I've also got a bunch of Rick and Morty rankings, which you can check out with the link in the outro. But as for today, that's it from me. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I will see you all next time.